Hi, welcome to Intuitive Insights. I am your host, Megan McDonough. I have a guest with me today to explore further how we can use our intuition in our lives daily. I have Michelle Casazza. Michelle is an intuitive business and life coach who empowers women. She raises the consciousness of the women through the divine feminine. So welcome. Well, hi.
Thank you, Megan. Hello. It's so good to be here. I'm so happy to chat with you today about intuition.
Absolutely. And so we had discussed a little bit before about the volume at which intuition can play a part in conversation with ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But first, I have two questions to ask.
Great.
You're like, what is this? The first, what is intuition to you? How do you define intuition?
Yes. I would have said a few years ago, oh, it's your gut instinct, right? It's like that. Everyone says your gut, right?
Right.
I think that it's more than that. It's being tuned in to your inner self, to who you truly are. And it's listening to that voice that comes up, those little whispers, those nudges, and honoring that. That is your intuition. It's that like connection to self and connection to others that we honor.
Absolutely. And then the second question is how do you use it in your life? And then I have a question I want to go back on with that. But how do you use intuition in your life?
Well, now I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Use it all the time. You said this beautiful framework recently, and I hope that you can repeat it at some point today, but just about how some people don't even know that this is the thing. They're not listening. Others are hearing, but they're not responding. And then some people are hearing, understanding, and responding, right? So how do I use it today, the way that I'm living life now after my own personal transformation? I listen all the time. I ask her questions. Yeah. I connect back to myself for guidance, whether it's asking really anything, but I'll give you some examples. Anything from what color nail polish am I feeling right now to 100%. Is this person a good business partner? I ask questions that range that spectrum because really we know, right? When I work with women, the first thing I always hear is, I don't know. Right. And within minutes, I get her to the point where she says, no, I actually do know. I was afraid to say it, or I was afraid to listen to that voice. And so I use it all the time. I check in with her all the time. Sometimes it's a voice. Sometimes it's a feeling. Sometimes it's really loud. Sometimes it's quiet, but I learned over time, and I'm still learning how to harness that voice because it's an inner compass. It's a guide. And it really helps us stay aligned with who we are and what we're here to do.
Yes. Yeah, I like to think of it like the soul is the driver of the skin suit we're living in this kind of dense 3D world that we're trying to not get attached to, but navigate through.
Yes.
You know? And so the soul knows the journey and the mission for this lifetime. And when you check in with the soul, which is your intuition, I believe, the voice of the intuition, then you have, it's like, should we take a left here or a right? And the soul's like, this one doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like hard left, it's like, it really does, if you're open to listening to it. And then more importantly, like you were saying with your women, like they always know, but I think innately, we're more intuitive as women. I'm not saying men aren't, but it's just, I don't know if it's because we're allowed to be, meaning like we're allowed to let our emotions flow through us as children. We're allowed to explore creatively as children. We get away from that and we start doubting it in the structure of like, say, the corporate world, where you came from, or just like being in communities, where we're afraid of what, so that it's not only just hearing it, but it's having the courage to follow through.
Right.
And so that, having said that, I would love for you to, if you don't mind, chat a little bit about how you found the courage to follow through and to leave corporate world and follow your intuition into what the work you're doing now.
Yes. Yes. I love that you brought up the word courage, because we have everything we do. We have a choice in what and how we do it. And so when this intuition comes up, you choose, are you going to listen or not? And that has been a theme for me of choosing, and seeing the repercussions of my choices of either listening or not listening to that intuition. But to answer your question, so a little background, I was in corporate for about 12 years in the finance startup space. I'm a CPA by trade. So it was a very masculine, very intense, my place. My motto was get shit done. That was it. Right. And I did, like, I got a lot of shit done, and I burned out. And this was the first full year of the pandemic. We were all like in that work from home environment, and heavy things were dark. And I had already been burnt out before the pandemic, and I was about to leave my job, but then I stayed for that safety during that very uncertain time. And I was sitting on a Zoom call about who knows what, some tech thing that wasn't working, and it's all very intense, and I'm kind of zoning out, and all of a sudden I hear the word balance. It was spoken to me, not from somebody on the Zoom. There was nobody else in my home. It just came through. And I remember looking like, who said that? What did you mean? Could you give me more? And it wasn't the first time I had been spoken to in that way, but it was the first time the message was like clearly for me and very direct. It was just like, immediately I just felt very shook, like, oh. And so, I kind of went on with my days questioning, like, what did that mean? What was that message? Because at the time I had already really disliked the phrase work-life balance. I just felt it was unfair expectation for women who also want families and lives and children to have to find a work-life balance. Like, it just never made sense to me. So I knew it wasn't that. I didn't know what it was. And so over time, I decided that I was going to align my time with things that I loved. And so first thing was, well, what do I love? It wasn't easy to answer that question at the time, because I was so out of balance. My entire life was my job. From the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, it was all about that career. And so I had to think about it. And what came to me was, I loved travel, I loved sailing, and I loved food. And so long story short, I ended up leaving my job, starting to work for a sailing travel company that worked with these beautiful chefs. And so those three things were ticked off by this company. And I thought I was going to take 2 weeks off. I ended up pivoting my entire life. I have not gone back to corporate. And so that was an example of when I, over time, slowly integrated that message from my intuition, from God, from source, that was nudging me to do something different, to change. And it wasn't overnight. That one was not an overnight decision. I have others that were. It was an overtime, and it was one of the first times that I was really learning to listen to myself. I heard that and I said, I know intuitively there's something that has to change. I was waking up dreading my entire day. Like, that is no way to live. But it seemed normal because everyone else in my life at the time was working really hard. Was like and so, for me, it really changed my life, and it really opened up my world, my heart, my way of thinking, my way of living. Everything changed because of that decision, because of that word balance. And it wasn't just my career choice. It was, I started to learn how to treat my body better because my body was out of balance. My hormones were out of balance. It led me to meditate because I needed to not just get shit done, but live and flow. And so really it was this domino effect that happened after making that decision that, one choice leads you to the next, that changed my entire life.
So what was I was going to ask you something about, the voice, the volume of the So speak to me. You called her intuition, which I love. Um, Talk to me a little bit more about discerning what is your intuition, what is she, what is her voice, and
Mhm.
how you came to cultivate it and understand it and know what's wrong, what's not.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer the she question or the she point first,
Yeah,
because I do feel that, you mentioned women are very highly intuitive. And you're right, as are men. Men do have this gift. We all do.
yeah.
But women are creators of life. We
Mm-hmm.
have our source of creation within us. And
Mm-hmm.
so we are connected on an even deeper level to God, to creator, to
Mm-hmm.
source. And when I think like, what is my intuition? Yeah, it's me, but it's really my soul, therefore my connection to God. It is the God within me.
Yeah,
Like it is all those things. And for me, it just naturally is a she. It's my feminine power. It's my
sure.
feminine
Yeah,
essence, that feminine energy. And I do believe that our intuition, whether we're a man or a woman, our intuition is a feminine uh, energy within us. It's
yeah.
that creation, that intuit, that source. So,
Shakti energy. You know, Shakti.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So that's exactly how I think about it. And uh, your question was, how do I know that it's intuition and not something else?
Yeah,
Right.
because
Mhm.
because on even on my intuitive journey, and I feel like so the word intuition or intuitive is thrown around a lot, right? So
Yeah.
like, like this app isn't intuitive. This website isn't intuitive,
Yeah. Yeah.
like and an intuitive in that framework to me means more like facile or easy or flows, right? So but other things that flow through us are things like emotions and fears, which are
Yeah.
emotions, and
Yeah.
ideas, because our mind is always, if it's not trained to quell itself, it
Yeah.
vibrates
Yeah.
like crazy with lots of thoughts. So for me, the discernment has come that my intuition never has emotional attachment, meaning whether or not I do the thing, it's not going to like there's no emotion attached to the yes or
Yes.
no, and it never has fear at all. It's never coming from a place of anxiety or fear. So, and when I have those feelings, those gut feelings, those instinct feelings, which I feel the instinct and intuition work together, but the instinct is based in the body and the survival of the body, which is transient, right? It's delicate. It needs to be protected. So
Mm-hmm.
fear is a part of that. Whereas the intuition is a part of the soul, which is everlasting. It's permanent, right? It's in my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
and so there is no need to protect the thing that won't be broken.
Yeah.
So the fear is a way of saying, oh, that's my fear. That's not my intuition.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I learned to communicate with my soul, my intuition. So what was your journey with that? Was it similar or different or?
It's very similar. And the end point of my journey is knowing how to create space to allow that intuition to come through without emotion, right? We have to be a clear channel to be able to hear. But the
Yes.
beginning of my journey was actually being in the emotions and
Yes.
those emotions blocking me from
Mm.
being the clear channel, from hearing my own guide, my own source. So the example I'll share is I was in a early days of a really beautiful relationship,
Mm.
but I was living in fear.
Yeah.
He was a lot older than me. And so my fear was, could this even work? Will he
Right.
be around the things that I want my partner to be around for? And there was so much fear that I was about to explode with tears all the time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I couldn't think, is this my partner? Because I
Mm.
was in the fear.
Mm, mm,
And it
mm.
was this beautiful gift from one of my mentors, and she said the gift was an invitation to cry, an invitation to process that fear, that grief. And she said, put on a sad movie, just let yourself cry. And so I did it with him. I said, we're going to watch a sad movie.
We're going to cry.
I'm going to cry. Really, really cry.
Yeah.
And I did. And it's like there were more tissues than I've ever seen. It was flowing out of me. All of the emotions that were blocking me were coming out.
Yeah.
And the next morning I woke up feeling like a new woman. So clear, so open. I still had the question. The question was not answered yet.
But the anxiety was,
the anxiety was gone. The fear was gone. The grief was gone. And I was clear. And so I was then able to live each day with love, not fear, and trust that the answer would come to me.
Trust. Yes.
That's trust. It allowed me to be present in the relationship and feel into it. Is this my partner? Is this my person? And the intuition came.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really beautiful story because I'll share a little bit more context. The two of us are sailors. And so we were living on board a boat for the summer together. And in my mind, this was my time to make the decision. I'll know, right? In this time, I'll know. We had planned to be on board for about 3 months together. And I tell you, it was maybe week 3.
Yeah.
And I my intuition. The cry was like week 0. It was like right before we moved on board. Week 3, I hear it. And I said, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to listen. And I continued on. It was probably week 5. That voice came so loudly. Said, the answer's no. He's not your person. And I said, I'm still not ready. We had this plan, had these 3 months planned. I'm not ready. And the craziest things happened from there. Within the span of 2 days, we had on board, we had a flood. We left our hatches open and we had water in the boat. Everything was soaking wet.
Yeah.
Next night, we had a fire in the galley. Thank God, maintained. The next day, we tore a sail from the wind. So we had all the elements. We had water, we had fire, we had air. So the next, and I said, okay, intuition, I hear you. I will listen. Yeah. Because I do not want the boat to be damaged anymore. Yes. Around. And so I listened and I ended up similar to that cry. I said, I need to go home. I need to sleep. I need to be in a space to really, really know if I'm going to make this decision. Came home and I did what's always helped me to connect back to my intuition. I created. And for me, my way of creating in the kitchen. So I cooked. And very simply, everybody, I cooked a meal. Beautiful meal.
What'd you make? Come on, you got to tell us.
Oh, I made a beautiful Tuscan kale pesto pasta. It was, I was halfway through making this pesto. Remember the green right in front of me, which allowed my mind to stop, right? There was no thinking, is this the right decision? What should I do? None of that was there because my mind was in the food. It was in the creation. It was in my hands, right? Yes. So I was in the body. And that moment is when the intuition came so clearly. And I said, I'm ready to listen. He's not my person. And in that moment, it wasn't sadness. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anxiety of, will I find my person? It wasn't none of that was there. Yeah. It was a knowing. It was a very calm, clear, quiet even. At that point, the voice was quiet because it was just maybe being served like, here's your answer, right? Yeah. And I was ready for it. I was like, okay, yes, I will receive that and follow that intuition. It's not to say the emotions didn't come. Of course, living that out then, having to end that relationship, of course, was hard. We are humans. The emotions were there when I had to follow through on the decision, as they will be. But I always came back to the knowing and the trust in myself that said, this is what's right for me. This is what's best for my higher purpose. And this is what's true to who I am. So I never wavered. It was a very hard decision, but I never wavered because it was an intuitive decision. It was aligned.
Yeah. Yes. Aligned. That's the right word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of my focuses is creativity and intuition as being entry points.
Yes.
So to reconnect to creativity when you get stuck, you go through intuition or opening up vessel, and then the opposite. If your intuition is stuck, you go through creative to get back. And the other thing you said too, so beautifully, one that you gave yourself permission for it, but it always reminds me of when I lived in LA in the winter. You know, it get really hazy and foggy, and you could barely see the mountains, smoggy. But then a big rain would come. And right after the rain, the mountains were like crystal clear.
Yes.
And I always think of that. Like, that's when people freak out about crying. I'm like, no, clear it so you can hear it. Yeah. You know, right?
I like that.
I know. That's right.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful image that you've just shared from nature of, that confusion, that murkiness that we live in. That's not a good place to be in. And actually, even from like a brain health perspective, to live in that uncertainty is a tax on your brain. Like, we don't want to be in that space on so many levels. And so when you can clear that, give yourself permission to feel what it is that you're feeling, honor that emotion, right? Like, I was scared. There was fear there, but that fear was also blocking the right choice for me. It was blocking the intuition. So I had to work through it.
Yeah.
Right. I may have still ended in the same place of ending the relationship, but I wouldn't have felt confident in my decision had I not worked through that fear, because my intention was always to move forward with love and not fear.
Right.
So we had to clear the fear. We had to clear it. So we could hear it.
Yeah. And then I love that you said too, that because, okay, so I also believe that we're all on a spiritual path, right? Whether or not we know it or not. You know what I mean? And if you're listening, you can work with your spiritual path and go, you know, like, listen to do we go left or right with the intuition? But if you're not listening, and you gave a perfect example of that, your intuition, the universe, whatever you want to, it'll be like, I'm going to get your attention, you know? And I love how you were like, it was earth, it was air. I mean, not earth, it was wind, air and water and oh God, what was the other one? It was water, air, fire. You're like, no more. I don't want earth, you know? Like, but seeing it in that perspective, like I've always looked at it like nature will get your attention. The universe will get your attention if you are off track. And that usually looks like it, not usually, but it can look like a bad accident or something, you know, it really just shifts you out of whatever fog you're in. But looking at it through the veil of, you know, environmental energies, you know, is just beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. And I've mentioned sailing a few times, but it's really been such a gift for me on my journey because I always feel most connected to my intuition when I'm on the water, because you are as in nature as you can be. You are just surrounded by the elements all the time. And I've had multiple experiences on the water where my intuition has come up and alerted me of danger, right? It's alerted me of something that we're approaching that we need to, you know, shift or change. And once I realized that, I also opened that up as a channel for other intuitive hits to come through, because really when you, and this is a great lesson for anyone who's on this path and wondering, am I intuitive? Like you said, we're all soul's journey. We are all intuitives, right? Yeah. And there are ways to nurture that intuition, to allow it to come through. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to say, I am open to hearing my intuition. Very simple, opening up that channel. And so I opened that channel for myself. And I know that being by the water makes me more connected. it's a way for me to just feel into that. It's like, when an actor's learning an accent, right? They have a phrase that helps them click back into that accent. And so for me, it's going for a walk by the water. It helps me connect back to myself, to my intuition. And so, that I live by the water. I go on the water as much as possible. Anytime I travel, it's like, okay, where's the water? I have to go find her,
Same. As much as my sister lived in the mountains for a while in Colorado, and I loved it there, but I was like, where's the water?
Yeah.
I need the water.
And for some people
in Chicago, my husband and I are both like, we need to be on a coast. We need to be by the water, So it is best for us. But having said that, I wanted to say, I forgot the one thing. It doesn't matter. Okay, we're going right into this amazing thing that you've created for women with your two passions, which is the sailing tour, right? Is that correct? Or speak to me about that. You're sailing retreat.
So I mean, sailing was such a huge part of my transformation back to self after being in a corporate environment, a masculine dominated environment. And I am now bringing women on sailing retreats. So they're called Divine Feminine Sailing Retreats. And we get a catamaran for the week and we sail in beautiful, beautiful locations. And we bring in some really beautiful practices. There's movement, there's meditation, there's really healthy food that's going to just allow you to become that, that clear channel for yourself. There's connection exercises. And it's this really transformative week where, you step on board with sometimes a little fear, right? Like it's an adventurous experience. You're going to be out in the elements, right? And it's always an adventure when you step on a boat. And so we actually grow by facing those fears, everything from, what's it going to be like to be on a boat for a week to, am I afraid of the water? Like there's just so many things that come up. We work through that as a metaphor for working through fears in our life overall. And it's this beautiful way for women to connect back to the divine feminine, our feminine side, which is really our creative, our intuitive, our life force within us. So that when we return, and some women are returning back to their corporate jobs, some women are returning to their own business that they're running, we return in balance, right? Deep in this trip in the feminines, we can come back and get back to that. Okay, now I'm in my day-to-day. I can get things done. I'm getting things done because they're aligned, because I'm in balance, because it's more, a fuller picture of who I am as a person. So it's all about balance. It's about facing our fears, and it's about growing in community.
That's beautiful. And I can imagine that being together in such a sharing something. I have this phrase that vulnerability is your superpower. And when you share it, you not only empower yourself, but you empower others as well. And so I can imagine that being in a space, these women who are facing their fears, which lends to vulnerability, breeds some beautiful, deep-rooted connections, long-lasting connections.
It really does. And there's nothing like being in sisterhood in a really beautiful, supported way. And that's really what this is. And it's so funny. Do you ever find yourself telling someone a story and then you say I don't know why I'm telling you this. Or where did this
daily?
All right. and to your point about when we're vulnerable, when we share, we actually help others. Well, when we're sharing our story, even if we don't know it, we're teaching somebody else in that space. Someone else needed to hear some part of your story, and it could be an entire unlock for them. It could be an entire unlock. And that is the beauty of being in community in these really beautiful spaces, because you might think that you're healing yourself, but you're actually healing others as well.
100%.
And everyone that you're going to go back to your life and interact with, it's going to have a ripple effect that you are not even going to be able to fully understand. And that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. There's when I do readings, I have this analogy, but I think it totally speaks to what you're speaking about right now, which is when I do an intuitive reading, I call them soul talk, where I'm looking at your soul. And, like I said to you before, like either they're not listening, to their soul or to their
Yes.
intuitive voice. They hear it, but they don't want to do anything about it because they're scared.
I've been
Or
there.
they just don't even know they have it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like all of it. We've been to all of those places, right? So I just look at it like, I'm just telling you what your soul is asking you to hear, right? But in doing that, it's like, I look at it like I am speaking to you through like a pane of glass, so that the message is for you, but the reflection I also see of me in there, the message is also for me. So what I hear is also for me and you. So it's like, and that's what the beauty of vulnerable sharing is, that intuitive sharing. Really, it's beautiful bonds of connection.
Absolutely.
Michelle,
Absolutely.
how can people find you and your beautiful retreat?
Oh, thank you. You can find me at joinmatria.com. It's JOINMATRIA.com. And you'll find the retreats there. And I'll also offer a fun quiz. Joinmatria.com/quiz to find out what kind of matriarch are you. Matria is inspired by really the power and the wisdom that women hold. And it's an invitation to connect to that wisdom now. And that's another way of talking about your intuition. Yeah. We all have it. So I invite you to connect there. And I'm also on Instagram at joinmatria.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming. This is great. I love talking to you.
I know. It's fabulous. I love talking to you.
I know. This is just wonderful. And I might have to go on that trip with you.
I would love to have you.
I would love that.
I love bringing sailing. And my sailing journey, like I did not see there. It was always like the girl trying to sail. I could never find the people who wanted to sail with me. It was really hard. And then finally I found people who sailed, who I was like, wait, my friends too. And in that moment, I found this female captain who just inspired the heck out of me. Yes. I mean, she incredible. And she was a little younger than me, which was really cool too, because it became this thing of like, of course women can do this. What's wrong with me? Like, I just hadn't seen that example. So I get so much joy out of getting women on board boats, building their confidence of being on board a boat and allowing them to feel this beautiful connection to the sea and the water. And I hope to have you there, Megan. We'll see you on the water.
I know. All right. Well, take care and talk to you soon.